Hey, what's up guys, this is the Alchemic, and today I wanted to talk about the meta right now after the balance patch. So, right now it is really obvious that the best deck in the game is mid-range Shaman, and with this type of deck in the game, I kind of identify this as what I consider an oppressive meta, which I'll kind of explain in a moment, but I just want to go over what I think a healthy meta is versus an oppressive meta, and I'll cite some examples from my experience playing the game. So keep in mind that Shaman is pretty much the main problem of this. But there were some other factors that I was thinking of including, which you know I was kind of thinking about this, and then the balance patch actually hit, which is around when I launched my Shaman nerfs video. But anyway, I'm gonna cite that a couple times, but let's go ahead and get started. So, first, mid-range Shaman. This deck is undoubtedly the most powerful deck in the game has right now. You know, it just has very strong early and aggressive plays at the beginning of the game. It can race control decks and or race other aggro decks, and it also has the tools to play later to beat control decks. So I touched on what I wanted to see nerfed in my previous video, which you guys, like I said, but let's just go over the basics. So, the early game just has Tunnel Trog, the best 1-drop, pretty much undoubtedly, followed by the best 2-drop Totem Golem, and this really creates the best early game, allowing kind of a snowball effect to come up as the game progresses. You know, a lot of people are so disgusted when Tunnel Trog followed by Totem Golem happens, and it's really annoying to play against, and it's not very fun. And then around turn 3 to 5, you know, the Shaman plays Tuskar Totemic, which obviously has been nerfed. Like I said, I was thinking about this before. So around turns 3 to 5, the Shaman plays Thing from Below, Maelstrom Portal with Spell Power and Spirit Claws to clean up the opposing board. And in the late game, the Shaman is able to effectively win the game by, you know, Thunderbolt Valiant and Fire Elemental if the game's not already over. So I like to compare the ideas one by one to what I consider a healthy meta, which is Secret Paladin, actually. And I know that a lot of you guys are going to disagree, but just let me explain it. So the first idea I want to compare is the dominance of the decks. So there's really no debating that both decks were dominant during their times of play. Both decks play solid curves of minions, spells, and weapons that were just the most efficient of that time. However, as similar as these decks are, Secret Paladin was healthy for the game, and Midrange Shaman is not right now. So first of all, I'd like to point out the amount of flexibility that Shaman has in comparison to flexibility in Secret Paladin. So when ladder players played Secret Paladin, it was easy to point out what the Paladin's going to do. You know, obviously Minibot, Knife Juggler, or something's going to come on 2, Muster on 3, Piloted Shredder on 4, Challenger on 6, Tyrion on 8. You know, you can kind of predict these things. But in contrast, the Shaman can't be played around as easily. So generally seeing a turn 1 Argent Squire and a turn 1 Tunnel Trog are very different opening plays. And if I play my 2-drop against this, I'm either going to be traded in by the Tunnel Trog when Totem Golem is played, or I'm going to be traded in by the Argent Squire when Flame Totem is played. So whatever I play is going to get killed, but the thing is, I can't predict what his 2-drop's going to be in the same way I can predict you know, like a shielded Minibot on the Secret Paladin's turn 2. But I think a better example of this is Secret Paladin's turn 3 and 6. So ask yourself this: would Secret Paladin actually forgo playing his Mysterious Challenger on 6, or forgo playing the Muster for Battle on turn 3? Really, there's no reason not to, because those are basically the strongest cards in the game. For, you know, that mana cost, you just play one card, bam, and you know it's just too strong. Shaman just has more flexibility in what they're playing on any given turn. Like I mentioned earlier, Totem Golem or Flame Totem for punish me for not making a good enough read. And because these cards are just such different plays, my response to the plays is easy for the Shaman to adapt and play around. So their flexibility is really just one of the key factors that makes this happen. It's not predictable enough so that people can play around it. Another thing I'd like to touch on is that over on Hearthstone, it's really bad card design when you have too many cards in the game that have pseudo taunt. So cards like Emperor Thorsan, Malygos, and Ragnaros the Firelord, you know, things that you have to kill immediately before they gain too much value out of it. But the thing is, these cards are not the problem, because these are all high cost cards that because they cost so much, they deserve that kind of power. When I lose to Malygos versus I lose to Shaman, I'm much better losing to Malygos, because Malygos, you know, number one, it's a legendary, which, by the way, Shaman plays 0 legendaries, and even in this case, Shaman cards actually have more priority to remove than a card like Malygos, because even though that's a legendary. And number 2, Yeah, so Malygos is legendary. And number 2, my opponent actually has to set up an actual lethal. They're not just pressuring me to, use my resources. But anyway, the main cards that I would like to, going off is the main cards that are the problem are Tunnel Trog, Flametongue Totem, and Manatide Totem. I guess Totem Golem in some way. Shaman just has another win condition in addition to whatever it can already play, since it's already so strong, of having just too many must-kill minions that you really just can't win. I kind of touched on this in my Shaman Nerfs video, but which you can go back and check it out. Basically, a Shaman plays one minion, you kill it, they play a second minion, you have to kill it, you don't have a choice, and they play a third minion, and then you just lose your mind because you can't kill all those minions all at once. Because you have to kill them one by one. You can't let Flametongue Totem get value. You can't play Manatide Totem get value. You can't let you have to kill Tunnel Trog before it deals too much damage to you. You don't have a choice in a card like Thing from Below. You cannot leave. You have to answer their Thunderblow Valiant. There's just too many of these cards that are just too strong to not be, they have to be answered effectively. And I know about the reason why they're all in the same class, but that's kind of for a separate video. Shaman is just not beatable when they have too many of these must-kill minions, and by choosing Shaman as your ladder deck, it makes it really easy for your opponent as non-Shamans to kind of struggle to deal with your threats. And then even more than that, 2 of the huge factors that is a part of this deck's complete dominance over every deck in the game is that, first of all the good cards are released during the same period-ish, and second, every card in the game is relevant right now. So since Hearthstone has been around, Shaman has been the joke of every format, the hero power being complete RNG, the poor choices of overload cards, and the very conditional minions just made it for a fun class, or something that's really irrelevant to the meta. Knowing this, Team 5 had no doubt been designing and testing tons of cards to boost Shaman's position from this point, and with each expansion coming out, new designs have been experimented, analyzed, and put to the design of future sets. Blizzard always wants to make their cards better. But the thing is, when League of Explorers rolled around, Tunnel Trog's release turned Shaman's position into an incredible aggressive deck that was capable of playing against Secret Paladin of the time. And since then, Whispers of the Old Gods and One Night of Karazhan have just provided really, really snowbally tools. They're not to boost Shaman's position even further. And they're pushing Shaman beyond the point that they would usually do. Tunnel Trog was already good enough, I feel like. And then Whispers of the Old Gods, 4 mana, 7/7, stuff like that. Thing from Below, they're making Shaman dominant. So I think in this case, Blizzard was not really planning ahead, because they could have released these cards kind of in a. They could have released these cards a bit more periodically. Not every set should not be able to have that kind of thing, if you know what I'm saying. And, when Maelstrom Portal and Spirit Claws, which are cards that have been saved for an expansion down the road, it created the problem of this oppressive meta we have today. The thing is, they just need to be spaced out a bit more, and that would just be much better, because then we don't have to deal with, Maelstrom Portal and Thing from Below in the same format, at least for a year. That would just give us some, breathing room, Blizzard. It would just be much better to only have to deal with 0 mana 5/5s, rather than 0 mana 5/5s, 1 mana 3/3s, 1 mana Pyroblast. Why? 1 mana, better than... Why is a 1 mana card better than a 10 mana card? Okay, but then anyway, just so that we don't have to deal with all this stuff. And the problem with this is every card is just relevant right now. All of the cards from expansions are just too good not to play. Totem Golem, Thunderbluff Valiant, Tunnel Trog, Thing from Below, Spirit Claws, Maelstrom Portal. They're part of every single Shaman deck, and the latter half are going to be relevant for another year of Standard. So this is why during Karazhan season we didn't see Maelstrom Portal or Spirit Claws being relevant. Because we assess the cards individually, okay, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. But the thing is, they're all combination with the other resources Shaman has to deal with that we weren't able to experiment with because the cards weren't released. And with the balance patch doing pretty much nothing but boosting Shaman, we're in for a very Shaman-heavy tournament meta until the next balance patch comes, which hopefully needs to be coming soon, because the previous one is not done very well, anything at all. And I feel like this is going to need to do something insane, because people were just complaining about Yogg in the last balance patch, but now Shaman, why? I mean, why? How does that work? Why is nerfing a Shaman cards also just making the deck much better? It shouldn't be that way, and it needs to come down soon, because players are going to start leaving. You know, Yogg was already making the format unhealthy, and this is going to be even, you know, players after seeing these results are going to be not going to be happy with that. But let's go back to discussing the popularity of these decks during their formats, which Midrange Shaman versus Seeker Paladin, obviously. So Midrange Shaman is played in literally every single tournament lineup. If you guys look at BlizzCon tournament deck, you're going to see Midrange Shaman. There's 16 out of 60 players are bringing Midrange Shaman, which definitely has to show you that this deck is #1 in the game right now. And it's certainly, this deck is certainly in every player's top 3 ladder decks, if not higher. It has to be. Like, sure, I can understand if Malygos Druid is better or Freeze Mage is better, but Shaman has to be in one of your top considerations for ladder. It's just simply too much of a powerful deck to not be run, and has not very many bad matchups other than Freeze Mage, which, when you bring it, you're going to ruin your lineup if you don't queue it against that mid-range Shaman. That's kind of a huge thing when you play a Freeze Mage, is banning out Warrior and then playing against Shaman, making sure it hits that Shaman, because as long as you draw 2-drop, you should be fine. And additionally, some of the other counter picks in Malygos Druid and Control Warrior, they're not even very much favored, because design flaws, which once again, design flaws in the Shaman deck, they can just snowball you out of the game. You don't even have a choice, because then it just comes down to draw, and because I'm playing better decks, better cards in my Shaman deck, I'm going to win. Like, that shouldn't be it. That shouldn't be the problem. But, you know, every single tournament lineup has some form of mid-range Shaman just due to the sheer power of the class right now. If we look at Secret Paladin, during Secret Paladin format, was almost equally prevalent on ladder, if not more. But this is the main thing that I think makes Secret Paladin a healthy format. Secret Paladin was almost completely absent from tournament lineups. Often this was really just cited to the deck's plan to just play on curve rather than having any decision making, which is part of the overall skill that tournaments are supposed to help determine, you know? Players decided not to bring Secret Paladin for the reason that it was very predictable. It didn't have any decision making. And it's not because, decision making, you know, playing on curve is bad thing, you know, you're looked upon, down upon by the community. It's because it actually doesn't have any thought process, and it's easy to play around with a deck like Zoo, which can totally set up for trading into your board very, very efficiently. And this is the reason the curve is really easy to predict, because you know power plays are coming on 3, 4, and 6. This is the reason most tournament lineups were kind of absent of Paladins all during the format. And the class was also just used for Anyfin OTK Murloc. The Anyfin OTK basically. And this is why strong decks like Freeze Mage and Oil Rogue were found in many players' lineups due to the amount of skill required to play the class, you know. Decks like this have a high skill cap, but with that high skill cap, if you're able to play the most optimally, you're going to be rewarded heavily, because you can win against pretty much any deck with that. But obviously, Oil Rogue's gone, Freeze Mage is weakened, and it's you know, these decks are not very easy to play, but they have incredible reach once the player has mastered the play of the deck. So I kind of miss those kinds of decks in Hearthstone, you know. That was a really fun meta. So compared to Secret Paladin, you know, mid-range Shaman just has more, maybe has more decision making, but its abundance in tournament play and ladder makes it impossible to escape the power. So, you know, if you're going to be playing Hearthstone right now, you're going to run into Shaman whether you like it or not until the next balance patch comes. But anyway, these are just my thoughts. BlizzCon is going to be one hell of a tournament now that it's dominated by Shaman, and I feel this is going to be one of the worst BlizzCons, knowing that the last 2 BlizzCons have been more balanced in terms of classes. Anyway, be sure to let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Once again, I'm trying to do as many of these videos as I can, and if you have any thoughts, leave them down below. So like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.